Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Friday. How are you, Tom?
I am doing very well. Thanks, Bob. How are you today?
I'm good. A little flummoxed, but I'll explain that as we go. That's the incomparable Tom Brush, and I'm the flummoxed Bob Graham. And we have been talking all week on our program, Today's Antidote, where we look for that one thing you can try to improve your day with, something digestible, not a huge thing, but just something to try on like a new glove. Does it fit or does it not fit? All week we've been talking about overwhelm. And I got to tell you, Tom, it's been an overwhelmingly interesting topic to people. I continue to get people commenting about it. How about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that it is a huge concern for not only, business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders, but for everybody. I mean, we all go through it at some point in our lives, probably in our days, where we sit there and we're like, I've got so many things to do. Now, whether that is a perception or it's a reality, I think that could be discussed.
Doesn't really matter though, right?
No, it doesn't.
If you feel it, if you're experiencing it and you're not being able to do what you set out to do because of it, it's real to you.
Correct. It is the experience that you're having, which makes it more real. And I think we all deal with it. And I think everyone tries to figure out, imagine, this is one of the things I think about all the time with overwhelm. How many different to-do list things have you tried to keep yourself, to find one that works to keep you organized, right?
At least 30.
Yeah, I think I try a new one at least every year. It's like, okay, this is the new system that is going to work. And I think it's all in an effort to figure out how to deal with overwhelm. And I've yet to find one that I'm really like, that is it. And maybe there's just none. There is no way to actually really do it.
I just got one custom built, believe it or not.
Custom?
I don't think I told you about that. Yes. I'm using a free open source solution called Notion, and a friend of mine had someone that customized it for him, and I've gotten it customized, and it has worked really well for the last 2 weeks. But 2 weeks isn't really enough to commit to something. If you ask me about Notion in April, and I'm like, oh, Tom, it's awesome, this will be the winner.
Okay. All right.
Fingers crossed. So Tom, before we get to today's topic, want to give people the opportunity. One of the things that makes this program great is the comments we get from the people involved listening. We gain so much from that. Both Tom gains, I gain, but also we gain from each other. So if you have a comment or an observation or an insight, or even something funny to say, we've already had John, I think, say, did you make up those words? I think he's questioning incomparable and flummoxed, but they are actually words.
I wondered about flummoxed, but I had heard it before.
Yeah, have you heard incomparable?
Of course.
Related to you?
No.
Okay,
well, yes, because you've said it before. That's the only way I've ever heard it used.
Okay, all right. So if you have a thought, something you want to put down for all of us to join and share in, please feel free to do that in the comments. We read them as we go. We integrate them. In fact, I will do that right now. From Tim this morning, he didn't get it from Sinatra. Then he would be saying, duty, duty, do. I can't do a Sinatra impression. I can do Tom Jones. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone, but not Sinatra. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And Tim also says, how many to-do list types of things have you tried to keep yourself organized? A great quote from Tom Brush, and probably a real sign that overwhelm affects us all, because most of the people I know, no matter what field they're in, they've tried different things to avoid overwhelm. That's what the to-do list does. But what's funny to me is when I need to use my to-do list the most is when I feel most overwhelmed and when I'm least likely to write things down because I'm not in the action mode. I'm in the, oh, what am I going to do? How am I going to deal with it? This is crazy. I've got so much to do. Why did I tell them this deadline? Why did I agree to do this thing? What was I thinking? I can spin out of control, and I know you love it, Tom. But today our topic is what knowledge do we gain from being overwhelmed? Do you want to take a stab at that, Tom? I've got some thoughts.
Sure. There's a couple things. One, just go back to your to-do list thing is that as you were saying that, I'm almost wondering, does a to-do list create more overwhelm? Because now you've actually written down like all the things, and they're not prioritized typically. So you've written down all the things that you have to do, which for all of us, when you start doing those lists, they could go on and on forever and ever. And so maybe that's part of what we gain is that at some point we have to understand that we can't do everything and we have to figure out how to prioritize what it is. One of the other things I think that we learn from Overwhelm is we just have experienced it, right? So once you go through it, you understand a little bit about like, how does it make you feel? How do you react? Does that, we talked a little bit yesterday about, does some people feel like that makes them more effective because they have a deadline and they feel like I've got all these things to do. Okay, I have no time to waste. I have to dive in. Other people feel like that just puts them into panic mode, which spins people more out of control. So I think, one of the things we get to understand what is real for us in Overwhelm and how does that impact who and what we are. And it's going to be different for everybody. We're all going to react differently to Overwhelm, but it impacts what is real for each of us and what our knowledge, experience, and perspective is. Again, some people's perspective is, I actually like that because now I get focused. Others are like, oh my God, now I don't know what to do. And I panic.
I would add two more things to that growing list of what we gain from it. One is every time we overcome overwhelm, I think we get closer to dealing with the overwhelm at the front end. And my wife said to me yesterday, every year at this time, it's budget month and she'll have to work, even though Monday's a holiday. And she said, I'm in this place every year at this time. That was not, why am I in this place as much, I think, for her to say, you know what? I've now done this, 14, 15 times. I'm going to get through it. And I hear people say that about, when they manage people and they have to do all the annual reviews. It's like, oh, I got to fit in 8 reviews or budget and we have these milestones or taxes. I've certainly said it when I'm overwhelmed, like I got to do all my work and then I got to find time to find all the paperwork and do all the tax stuff, those things. So we learn because every year I do my taxes. So this year, I know from last year, hey, start earlier, download the files from your bank sooner, get it all in line. Sure. And so I've segmented it. So we learned that. The other thing I think we learned, Tom, and this is one that really hit me the other day, was that we actually care about what we're doing. And we're not going through the motions. When we get overwhelmed, that's when we become emotionally invested the most, I think. And that tells us that we care about what we're doing, that there's something there that we want to do well, that we want to get right, that we want to make sure we accomplish because we feel drawn to doing that thing. What do you think about those two?
Absolutely agree. Well, and I think what it also does.
Whoa, that's a first. Absolutely agree. That mark the date. How many episodes did it take?
We should go back to Tim on that. Tim, I have agreed with Bob a number of times.
Not absolutely, though.
We'll have to check the record. We'll go back and review.
No one will watch all those episodes. No one.
Tim has already watched all of them, so he probably knows exactly when I said that I did.
The keeper of the records, yes.
Here's what I would say. Here's what I think about that too is sometimes that overwhelm helps us prioritize, right? Mm-hmm. We get to a point where we have to choose. So one, we choose those things that we really care about because it's important and it's a priority to get done. So when you get to that moment where they're like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed. What am I going to do? Well, this is due. It's either this is due tomorrow or in an hour, or this is the thing I really care about. And this is the one that I'm going to choose to do because I know, one, I like to do it. Two, I know that it's going to move me forward faster. And so that's, I think, why, again, one of the other things we take from it, we start to realize, like, what's the priority? What do we really like? And how can we get it done? And I'd go back a little bit to what you were saying. It's funny. I think we know we have those times of year, which you were saying before, that are going to come up with us. And we don't block those into our calendar. Like, we don't actually carve out the time for it, even though we know it's coming. So like and I'm a prime example, taxes, right? If
I wasn't going to say it.
Well, you didn't have to. I was feeling it already. Is if I know that that's something that's going to come up every year, but I don't block out a time to do my 1099s. So I haven't allocated a part of a finite amount of time, like we talked about yesterday, for doing it. And so those people, like for your wife, if when this time is coming up, does she make a conscious decision to not have as many other meetings so that she reallocates that time for doing those things? I was watching a conversation online on Facebook and talking with a nonprofit whose board was saying, we need to create another event. And so, on Facebook, people go all over the place. Like, well, why are you doing an event? Here are the things you could do. Why don't you do a fundraiser? Why don't you do an individual ask or go find a grant? And what it struck me last night was, if they're spending 100% of their time doing what they did last year, where are they finding the time to add a new thing in? So I wrote to them this morning and be like, unless you were sitting around and had all sorts of times to add something, I would go back to your board and say, I can find an event. I want you to tell me what it's going to replace. Because I don't have 10% more time, 15% more time to do this. And I think that's where we get lost sometimes, is we know something's coming. We know that it takes up a bit of our time, yet we don't intentionally schedule time to do it. And so things step in and they've either become more important, we overschedule them. I used to do with my team when we were talking about reviews, because I would do it not only once a year, but quarterly. At the start of the year, I said, I want you to write down these 4 dates and these times. And the only way this is overcoming, if you're going to meet with a prospect that's really important, because these are the dates that we are going to, as a team, review what's our progress to goal. So we scheduled that time in because I said, this is a priority. We need to make sure we're allotting time. Otherwise, if I had waited till a week before to try to find that time, would have never worked.
Tom, we've got a great, I'm totally thinking, what's the word? Suggestion. Sorry, I'm totally blanking there. A great suggestion from Gene. Let's block out a power hour to collect tax info. So for those of you who don't know what the power hour are, in the Renegade Success Network, we were doing power hours twice a week, where for an hour from, what was that? I think 12 to 1?
12 to 1.
12 to 1. We would get together, we'd get on screen through Zoom, keep track of each other. And for that power hour, you could work on whatever. But as you're working on that work, you could look up and see everyone who is muted doing their work. And it was a really powerful way to get people to move forward. So maybe we need to go back to that, Tom. I love the idea of helping people with these things that we all have to deal with that we never find time for. So, Gene, that's like a brilliant idea. Tim says, I got to get that done. Putting it on my calendar now. Oh, if only. And I love that phrasing.
I noticed that you conveniently jumped over this comment.
I didn't want to derail the show.
And then he even followed it up with this one.
So what is the number? I'm not sure. But, oh, okay. Wow. All right.
But I think your point is, so I'm going to go back. That did just a little interjection there. What would be interesting is if we sat down and had an hour and said, okay, what are the most important things you have to do next month?
Yeah.
Think about that and sit down in your calendar and write down the times you're going to do them. It's kind of like putting a deadline on something. And, I love to have people have deadlines on, okay, if you say you're going to do it, when? And this is just an extension of that when, by saying not just, oh yeah, I'm going to get it done by the end of the week. Okay. When in that end of the week? What's the actual time frame? And I think the more we're able to do that, not that it's always going to work perfectly, and it's going to help us reduce, I think, some of that overwhelm, as long as we stick to it and we say we scheduled that for a reason because it's a priority.
So, Tom, we got another comment. This is from Dan, the new normal guy who was involved with our networking a couple of days ago. By identifying the totality of what needs to be done or would be valuable, it brings the opportunity to delegate. Now, if you're lucky enough to have people to delegate to, that's great. I find that I have to delegate a lot of things to myself. And I got to say, I'm one of the worst employees I've ever worked with sometimes.
Well, here's the other thing you can do. Sometimes delegate means delegate to the trash can. Doesn't have to be to somebody else. It can be like, look, yeah, this is great. I'd love to do it. I don't have anybody to delegate it with, and I don't have any more time. So you know what? For now, it's going to have to sit on the back burner, or I'm going to throw it away, or I'm going to keep it way over here. And if I find myself with time to do nothing, I'm sitting around like, okay, what am I going to do? I don't have anything to do. Now I could take a peek at it, because that's almost like found time. I didn't realize I was going to have it. It's a Friday afternoon. And yeah, I could stop work early, or maybe I'll dive into this thing that I had looked at before and never really felt like I had the time to do it. So I think delegate doesn't always mean delegate it to someone else or to yourself. It could mean delegate it to the trash.
Or to doing it later.
Or doing it later.
I'm not gonna, like Clubhouse for me. It's on the horizon, and bots apparently.
They've been on the horizon for a long time. So they might almost, they're not in the trash, but they're probably above the trash.
Oh, you're going to make me bring them back. So, Tom, I want to make sure we have some time at the end of the program, because I'm going to pull a curveball on you. But first, what's that one thing that you think will help us with this whole idea today that we're trying to work through?
You know,
that's right. Knowledge gained from Overwhelm. I totally forgot the topic for a second. Did you notice that?
I wasn't going to mention that. That's okay. I was just going to keep rolling along. You know, it's not
You're
like
a good partner in crime.
It's not the first time that I've noticed that. Anyhow, so my one thing would be, I would go back to, I loved what you said about it helps us identify what we really care about. And I would add to that, it also helps us figure out how to prioritize. And I think if we can take those two things and start applying them going forward, and then scheduling the time to do it, that would be I think that's one tip. One tip wrapped up, a couple tips wrapped up in one is, that we understand exactly why it's important. And we now are prioritizing that. Now we just have to figure out how to make that work within our lives, within what's real for us.
I love it. Can't add another thing to it. So I'm going to move to something fun, Tom. We've been talking all week about overwhelm. One of the ways I think we can get away from overwhelm is to break our routine, do something a little different. And I'd like to propose to you right now, Tom, there's a big football game tomorrow evening. You are a big fan, for some unknown reason, of the Buffalo Bills. I am a fan of the Baltimore Ravens. Being that I'm from Baltimore, I know you're from upstate New York. I think we should have a healthy wager on this about, if the other person's team wins, that person will have to do something embarrassing just to break things up. What do you think, Tom? So what would be that embarrassing thing that you'd be willing to assign to me or to yourself should your team lose?
So here's the thing. You probably didn't see my comment, but what Bob doesn't know is that I played a lot of baseball in high school, a little bit in college. Curveball is my favorite pitch. I sat back on it and I drilled it to left field, just as an FYI. No. So here's my thing. I don't bet on sports.
Really?
Nope. I might play a NCAA basketball pool or whatever. The things I would bet on are things that I'm certain about. And there is no certainty in sports.
No, I just do it. I don't really to me, it's just something fun to make it a little more exciting that if my team loses tomorrow night, I'm going to have to, I don't know, crack an egg over my head.
Wow.
I don't know, just if we had the bet, but that's fine. We can pass on that. I'm okay with that.
On Monday morning, I'll congratulate you.
You think my team's going to win then?
No, I said that if you did,
I'm just messing with you.
If I do, I'll congratulate you.
Okay, fair enough. I will do the same.
Because I care about it, but not enough. All these people who run around and say they guarantee this is what's going to. If you guarantee and you are that certain, bet something that really matters. Bet your house. Bet $1 million. Bet every penny in your bank account. If you're that certain, do that. I just don't. I just think sports are too many things can happen that it's not worth. I'd rather spend the $5 and buy a lottery ticket.
Well, Tom, Gene, and John would suggest that you do the do that I do in the morning if my team wins.
Do the voodoo that you do so well?
I don't know if it's voodoo, but sure. The other thing is on Monday, we start our workshop series from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And these workshops are really designed. I was telling someone yesterday that I met for the first time. I said, these workshops are really designed for people who haven't quite found their groove with their business. We're going to talk on Monday about finding your audience with not just talking heads kind of, hey, I'm Tom and I'm Bob and here's a PowerPoint. We're going to actually get our hands dirty. And in an hour and a half, you're going to understand your audience in a completely new way. Then on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to talk about your message, which is another thing that I see so many people, and you and I have struggled with it at times. How do you get the right message? And if you know your audience, what's the message to the audience? And then Wednesday morning, we're going to do the third one, which is where do you find your audience? Now you have your audience, your message, you got to find a place to put those things out there into the world. So we'll do that Wednesday morning. And then Thursday morning, we're going to talk about the one thing that most business owners, most leaders, most managers overlook, completely overlook. So all that's available for you. And you may say, wow, what's that cost, guys? Tom and I did a little negotiation over the last couple of days, and we've lowered the price to the bargain basement price of $0. That's right. You have to invest none of your hard-earned money. All you need to do is make a bigger investment. You need to come to these sessions committed to finding what's right for you, what's real for you. We're going to guide you down the path, but you've got to be ready and willing. This is not a 9 a.m., hey guys, take a call. This is block that time out. Don't get overwhelmed. Block that time out and really commit to this, because you're going to walk away at the end of Thursday with a completely new view of your business, which is going to position you for 2021 in a powerful way. Do you have anything to add, Tom?
Yeah, I would just say that, it's interesting as you were talking about costs and resources and we've been talking all day about time. And I think that, sometimes the cost that we pay to attend these things is not as valuable as the investment that we are making in ourselves. Because I think one of the biggest challenges for small business owners and leaders and entrepreneurs is to invest in us. We invest in our business. Usually we buy a widget, something that's going to, we have a website, we do whatever. Those are important investments. But sometimes we don't take the time to invest in ourselves, to figure out how do we take the next step. And I think this is why we do this show, is that it's an opportunity for people to take 15 to 20 minutes to have an investment in getting their day hopefully off on the right start, finding one thing that's going to help them out now or in the future, to just take that time to try to better understand where they're at, what they're doing, and what's real for them. Because if it adds to your experience, knowledge, or perspective, it's going to influence what's real for you.
Couldn't have said better, Tom. And for the record, we haven't had a 15 or 20-minute program in probably 3 months. We're coming in more around 28 to 30 minutes.
That's actually something I would consider betting on, but just to say, I'm pretty sure we've got a 15-minute.
We
I think we had to run one day. So
okay, and we tend on the Saturday program to be a
Correct.
little briefer.
Yep.
So, folks, this has been a great morning, a great week talking about Overwhelm. Please mark your calendars for those 4 mornings next week and register so we know you're coming. And if you're saying, "Oh, I really want to be there for all 4 days, but I can't be there for one of the days," that shouldn't discount you. We will have a replay available in the afternoon if you're registered, so you can catch up and be on track for the next day. Right, Tom?
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. And if you are not already a member of the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, where this is broadcast, and we have more discussions, comments, interaction, engagement, and a real community that's trying to help one another move forward, go to Facebook and search for Ring of Renegades. It is a private group, so you will have to ask to join, but all we ask is that you tell us why you're a renegade. And then you can become a part of this growing community of leaders, people who are thinking outside of the box and away from the echo chamber that is so much out there about how you should do things or what you should do. And really, it's about what do you need to do. So have a great day, everyone. We will see you either inside the Ring of Renegades, or we'll see you tomorrow morning. Yes, that's right, Saturday. We will be here, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. Take care, everyone, and have a great weekend.
What's your next destination? "2020 was a challenging year for business owners, leaders, and nonprofits. Whether it was a boom, a bust, or a pivot to something new, on December 31st we all reached a destination along our pathway. Whether you sprinted to year-end, took a much-needed break, or created new goals, intentions, or resolutions. Now it is time to chart your next destination with new knowledge, experience, and perspective. Given all that has happened this year, are you clear on what is real for your audience? What to say, how to say it, and where to say it? No matter how your year went, being clear on these things is critical. Even if you have already set long-term goals, taking the next steps can be challenging and confusing. Who can predict what things will look like in the next 3 to 6 months? Charting our next destination provides focus, clarity, and direction. On January 18th to 21st, join our workshop where we will help you identify what your audience needs, craft a message to reach them, and determine where to find them. This interactive and collaborative effort will have you ready to take your next step. Chart your next destination and your unique pathway to success. Register now and jumpstart.
I wanted to come back just so I could say, go Bills.